All right, so interesting discussion that I had online about Trump and his drone attack that took out Soleimani, who was the #2 guy for the Iranian government. Terrorist or not, we're going to put that aside for now because it was more of a philosophical idea of, wow, that is a hell of a statement that Trump has made. And the person I was talking to brought up an interesting point. Way back in the day, if you were a citizen of Rome, pretty much anywhere in the world, you were pretty safe because the consequences for a non-Roman citizen doing harm to a Roman citizen were quite drastic. And in fact, if you weren't a Roman citizen, you had quite a bit more rights than anybody else, and it was a real privilege to be a Roman citizen back in the day because you had those rights. Nowadays, we give those rights equally, which is a good thing, I believe. But it is an interesting point that Trump has made that statement. You attack our embassy, we'll take out your #2 guy. Wow. Is it a good statement? Well, times are different than back then. See, the weapons back then, you weren't facing absolute world destruction. And if your army was bigger than the other army, then might made right. Today, we have allies on essentially two opposing sides. And each side has devastating weapons. And each side is allied with other smaller allies that may not have such devastating weapons, but that's why these smaller allies are allies of these bigger countries. Protection versus resources versus blah blah, you know the deal. I just thought it was an interesting discussion, and I would like to hear your guys' thoughts, your comments on it. Keep it civil, but it is an interesting discussion point. And if we aren't allowed to have the discussion, then we can't ever figure anything out. I'm not pro one thing or pro other thing. I am pro truth, pro getting it out there and saying, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what everybody thinks. Because just like when you go to a carnival and they have those little games and it says, guess how many pennies are in this jar. Well, if you want to know pretty damn close to what it is, you take the number of people who voted, divide it by the total number of pennies that everybody total thinks of, get the average, and whatever the average is of what everybody says, that's going to be pretty dang close to the amount that's in there almost every time. Why? Because as a whole, with everybody in it together, everybody on the same page, everybody going after the same thing, we're pretty damn good as a species. All of us. Anyways, it is a good discussion point, and I want to know other opinions on it. Let me know.